Morning, good morning. How's everybody doing? Hope you guys are doing fantastic. FAQ&A, we're here, we're live Thursday, 9:45, bright and early. For some of you, maybe it's 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, maybe where you're watching from. But we're gonna go ahead and get started here and jump right into things. Welcome to FAQ&A. I am Cameron Macbeth. For those of you guys who don't know who I am, I'll put up my little nameplate here. I do all of the one-on-one consultations. So whenever you book a call, you get me or Joey if it's more sales oriented. But normally if it's about setup questions or questions over workflows, things like that, I'm the person you talk to. So the reason why we do FAQ&A is I want to go over some of the biggest topics that I hear on calls and just relay that information onto you guys in the community. What's up? What's up? Let everybody trickle in here. Hope everybody's doing fantastic. We have a lot of good stuff we're going to cover today, and I also have a special announcement at the end. So if you are staying throughout the whole FAQ&A, I do have an announcement at the end. So yes, I'm going to try so hard not to let the light fall. I have a light that Becca fashioned together, and we're just praying that it stays where it's at. So if it hits me, we're just gonna keep rolling through everything. All right, so we'll go ahead and go over the agenda of what's going on today and what we're going over. So the very first thing that we're gonna talk about today is we're gonna go over some onboarding tips. Now, actually, let me get rid of this here. There we go. So onboarding tips. A lot of the calls that I've had this week, people have been asking, how do I go from lead to job, or how do I get someone in the system and then move them through the process? How do I go through that? So we're going to go over some onboarding tips. Now, I'll kind of explain it again too, but not everybody's onboarding process is the exact same. So when we go into this isn't how everybody should do it, but there's some tips that you can utilize and then tailor them to your business. So that way you kind of understand how you move someone through a lead capture, make them a lead, use the lead funnels, send out proposals, convert people into a job. So we're going to go through kind of all those different tips in the very beginning. And then, like I said, you can take some of those core things in the system, and then you can tailor those towards exactly what it is that it does for your business. So that'll be the first thing we'll go over is onboarding tips. The second thing we're going to go over is utilizing contracts and invoices if you're not planning on using a proposal, or if you just want to send a proposal out by itself and then do contract invoice later. So there's a lot of people that I've talked to on the phone this past week that they might not want to use a proposal, or if they're using a proposal, it's more of, hey, I'm just throwing this out there and I just want to receive it back and then do contract and invoice together. So I'm going to kind of show you some tips for that. That'll be a little bit quicker subject, but we'll definitely touch on that today. And then the last thing I'm going to go over is recurring invoices. And I kind of want to talk about just kind of the basics with recurring invoices. We've had a lot of questions in the community, a lot of questions through our email chat system about how to use them. And so I kind of want to just go over the basics, how to use them, where you can input them at, how all the different the fields within setting up a recurring invoice, how those all play together. So we'll definitely go over that as well. I'll always try to field your questions as we roll through here. So if you do have questions, try to keep it kind of in the same lane of what we're talking about, so we can stay on point with everything. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started. Let me go ahead and share my screen here, and I'll pop this up and we can dive right into it. So the first thing we're going to go over is onboarding tips. So I wrote down a couple of kind of the key factors in Dubsado, or the key elements that go into onboarding. So if you have a pen and paper, you can kind of write some of these down. And then, like I said, take some of these core elements and then try to manipulate them to fit your business, because everyone's business is completely different. You might onboard people differently, but there are some key components in Dubsado that I feel like everyone should take advantage of, so you can help automate your process and it can make it a little bit easier for you. So the first thing I want to go over is the lead capture. A lot of people that I talked to this week on the phone might not have been aware of what a lead capture is, what it can do. So I want to go over that first. Whenever somebody is wanting to bring someone into Dubsado, and you guys are going to see the new logo today. I got that on my form. So if you guys have not seen the new logo yet on maybe Becca's lives or anything like that, this is the new logo. So you're going to see a lot more of that coming up really soon. But this is the lead capture right here. So if I have the lead capture up here, what this is designed to do is to generate new leads in your system without you having to do it manually. So most people will go in and they will go to leads, add a new lead, and enter it in manually. For the lead capture, this is the form that with Dubsado you can embed on your website. So if we have this form set up here and I click the share button, yes, the new logo is fire. I love it. I can't wait to unveil it. Well, I'm not unveiling it, but you know, we're unveiling it. Anyway, so if I click on the share button, it's going to give me an iframe code. Now, this code is what you can use to embed into your website. So a lot of people were also asking about custom CSS and designing the lead capture to be a little bit different. You can do that outside of Dubsado. So if you are wondering if there's any edits you can make besides what's in the system, it is possible. I've seen some people who have put backgrounds behind it, different things like that. But so the frame code, that's what's going to go onto your website. So you can embed that. And then there's also the direct link option. Now this can be turned into a bit.ly link. So if you don't want this long, super long URL, you can do a bit.ly link to make it shorter. But those are kind of the two ways that you can share the lead capture. Now, once they fill out this lead capture form, after that, they will automatically be created as a new lead in the lead section. So they'll fill this out and you can edit this to make it look however you want, change out the short answer boxes, change up all the different things that you want in their drop-down boxes and everything. But once they fill this out and the information that they filled out is in there, they'll automatically be created as a new lead. So they will automatically get filtered into this section here. Now, when they get into the lead section, you're going to have a project set up for every single person who fills out a lead capture form. So all of these here are considered new projects that you're starting. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're booked. That doesn't mean that they've signed contracts or anything like that. A project has just started with it. So once you have your project here, now you can start doing your managing, whether that's you applying a workflow, which you can do from the lead capture. And we have a ton of videos on that. I don't want to get too far into everything about the lead capture. But if you have a workflow that you apply to the lead capture, that will automatically get added and you'll be able to see that it's active here. Or if you want to go in and manually start doing things. So if I go into, let's just say, go into one of my leads here, from here, I can start sending out emails. I can start sending out invoices, forms. I can start doing all the manual stuff if I want to do things manually. Or if the workflow is automatic, you guys kind of have that in there too. If you want to put the workflow in there, you can add it manually if you need to. So we'll go back to the lead list. So we have lead captures first. Once they fill that out, they become a lead. So once they're in the lead section here, you can start doing your managing. Now, what I've seen from best practices from people is to utilize the lead funnels to move people through your process. And we touched on this last week with the last FAQ&A. We went over everything lead funnels, but we're going to touch on them a little bit again today because they're super powerful. And if you utilize them in the right way, it can really help automate a lot of your process. So you don't have to keep track of as many people. So the lead funnels across the top here, or lead statuses, so you can call them funnels or statuses, whichever one you prefer, whatever is your jam. So you have the lead funnels across the top here. These can be customized to how you want them, as many as you like, whatever you want them to say. I created a couple different ones that might, work with a certain business or might kind of just be generalized. But if you click add edit statuses up here in the top left-hand corner, this is where you can create all of your lead funnels. So a lot of people are having questions and asking, I want to change my lead status over here, but when I click on it, nothing's popping up. That's because you'll need to create those statuses up at the top here. And then you'll be able to go in here and say, okay, I want to put them in this category, or I want them to be in this funnel. So create your statuses first, and then you can change all of these here on the right-hand side. Now, when you go up and click add edit statuses, these can be changed around and you can move them around into different areas, and they don't have to be, you know, how the exact process you want, but you can manipulate those. If you click the pencil icon, you can rename them, delete them, you can add new ones. But what you're really wanting to get out of these lead statuses is how you move through the process. So you have lead capture, they become a lead and now they're here. Now I want them to move through the lead funnels. So this is kind of the third process that you can think of. Lead capture, they become a lead. Now I want to move them through the lead funnels. The reason why is because now you can categorize them a little bit easier and keep track of where they're at in the process. So if I've sent a proposal out, I might want them in the proposal sent category. If I need to book a consult with them, then I can put them in the consult category, follow-up, all these different ones that you can create. And that's going to help you look at it whenever you log into your Dubsado, go to your leads and say, oh, I need to follow up with these 3 people or these 4 people I need to make a phone call to. And it lets you know, okay, I have these proposals out, so I'm just waiting to hear back from them. So definitely take advantage of these lead funnels across the top. Now, where does the automation come in? That comes in with the workflow portion of it. So if I go into my workflow, and we touched on this a little bit last week, but we'll kind of review here. So if I go to, and I have a lead funnels workflow, and this can be, and I'll kind of talk about this at the end too. You can have maybe a lead workflow and then a job workflow. And so you could have 2 different workflows that you could apply to jobs, one specifically for when they're a lead. Or you could have one big long workflow and the lead portion is towards the top, whichever one you want to do. But with this one, I have the proposal. So if I'm sending a proposal out to the client, I have that going out first. And then after that, the workflow can actually change your lead status for you automatically. So that's where the automation with the lead funnels comes into play. If I've sent a proposal out to the client, which is my first option here, or my first action, the next thing that I want it to do is get moved into the proposal sent category. So this is where things can really keep you on point. You'll know exactly where people are at in the process. So normally the change lead status is going to be the second action following whatever thing you're doing. So maybe when they come in, the first thing that happens is they go into book a consult or call the client. However you want to manipulate it, you can have it set up that way where it will move them into a different category based off a certain action that you've done previously. So definitely take advantage of those lead funnels, because that's really what's going to kind of move them through that process. And the whole goal is to get people booked. That's what we all want as business owners, is to get them onboarded, move through the process, booked, and get you paid, because that's what everybody wants. So if we go to leads here, they're all in the leads section. Now, a big question we had this week was, what's the difference between leads and jobs? Leads, and like I said, this is best practices. Some people might use the system differently. It's totally okay. But normally, leads are going to be people who you haven't booked with yet. You're kind of in that communication phase. You've sent out a proposal to them, waiting to hear back. And then jobs are going to be people who you've actually booked with. So within the system, there's 2 ways you can move people from a lead to a job. The first way is manually, so I'll show you that here. So let's say I have, I got Johnny Appleseed as one of my leads. That kind of shows how old I am, I guess, because no one says that anymore. That's awesome. Anyway, so you have your lead here. Now, if you click on the drop down that's right next to the job title, it's going to pop up and it's going to say promote to job. Now, when I click on that, it's going to pick up that entire project and it's going to move it. Now here's Johnny Appleseed in the job section. So whenever you're promoting someone to a job or moving them back to a lead, because if you click on it again and click the same drop down, you can say downgrade to lead and you can move them back. It's just going to take that entire project and move it back over. So all the emails you've already sent, the forms, contracts that are attached, workflows that are running, it all stays the exact same. So you don't have to worry about having a lead and then creating a new job for the same person. You can just move that project into the job section. So eventually when it comes to the onboarding, we have lead capture, they become a lead. We want to move them through the lead funnels, and then ultimately we want to convert them into the job. And then that's when you can take over and start doing your photo shoots or start designing the websites or planning the event. So that's the one way you can convert them into a job. Let's say they might have signed a contract or made a payment and you want to convert them. That's the manual way to do it. So now I'll show you the automated way. And this is kind of an extra step in the process that you can add in. And that's using the proposal. So if I go to templates, I'm going to go to my pricing proposal here. It's super fancy, but I have my pricing proposal set up. Now, the purpose of the proposal, if you guys aren't familiar with these are the forms where you're going to be pitching your pricing to the client. So they're able to select from packages that you've created, and it will create an invoice for you. And we have a ton of help articles on that, so I won't go into too much detail about everything within the proposal. But the thing that I wanted to highlight is underneath, and I'll click edit and go to the settings tab. So elements is going to be how you build your form. The settings tab offers a lot more options. So in the settings tab, there's the ability to convert a client into a job. So remember, lead capture, lead, move them through the lead funnels, and we want to convert them into a job. So whenever they're moving into the job section, if you're using a proposal, you can actually have the process become automated. Now, if I click on this drop down for a convert to job, and can you guys see that okay? Let me see if that's popping up. I don't know if that's popping up on your end. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. And actually, let me slide this over. Maybe that'll help out. So there's 3 different things that you can do that will convert them into a job. You can either have it be from them submitting a quote, which is the proposal. So based off of them submitting the proposal, that is what will convert them. You can do it based off of them signing a contract that's attached or making a payment on the invoice. So in this here at the top where you have contract and invoice, okay, so you can link up a contract and an invoice to a proposal. If you have those linked up, you can then go through and you can have it based off of them submitting the proposal, them signing the contract that's attached, or them paying the invoice. So this won't be if you don't have the contract attached or don't have the invoice attached. This is only if it's all together. So this is the way that you can automate it. If they sign the contract, that's automatically going to move them. So when I go back over here, we have everything set up. Everything's good to go. Now, when I send this out, let's say they sign the contract, it's going to move them from that portion into the job section automatically. So now they'll be in this section. So that's how you can kind of automate the process of converting them from a lead to a job. So I have a couple points here, and it's basically 5 points. And so you can write these down if you're taking notes. This is typically how you will move through Dubsado. And like I said, tailor it to fit your brand, how you run your process. But I think of everything in this light. Lead capture, they become a lead. And then you're going to use the lead funnels to move them through their process. And then if you want to, this is almost like 3A or number 4, use proposal, contract, and invoice. So you're going to pitch your pricing, have them sign, make a payment, and then that's going to convert them to the job. So it's really kind of 4 points, but if you want to throw that proposal in there, you can. But lead capture, lead funnels, convert them to a job. That's typically how most businesses run, is you get them in the system, give them the right materials, and then move them into the job section. So that can kind of give you some tips on how to onboard someone through our system. But like I said, create your own lead funnels. You might need different information from the lead capture, all that good stuff. So that's kind of a rundown of best practices for onboarding and things that can help you out as far as, okay, how do I move them from this to this, or what's the difference between leads and jobs? They're kind of all the same. It's just how you decide you want to categorize them. Is it based off of them signing the contract or them paying an invoice, so on and so forth. So that is a rundown of that. So we'll jump into the next thing that we want to talk about today, which is sending out contracts and invoices if you don't really want to use a proposal. Or the other option with that is if you sent out a proposal and you just want to get it back and then review it and then send out contract invoice together. So what I'm going to show you first is how to link it together in the email portion. So let's say I've sent out a proposal, I've got it back from them. And remember, with a proposal, once they submit it, it creates an invoice automatically on your end as the business owner. So they filled out a proposal, we get it back, we have an invoice created, but I don't want the client to get contracted invoice just yet. I want to review some things. So if I go into templates, I'm going to go to my canned emails here, and I'm going to pop up my contract and invoice email that I created. Now, in the body of this email, the only thing that really matters, and you can manipulate this and change the text and change the body to fit how you would talk, but what you'll need in the email is the contract link smart field and the invoice link smart field, which can be found underneath smart field, link, and then you can use these. So if you want to include the contract and the invoice in the same email, then you'll just have those two in the email so that when they open it up, they have two buttons to click on, the contract and then the invoice. Linking it together where it's kind of in the same tab with the proposal, contract, invoice combination, that's only if you're using the proposal. So that's kind of off the table when it comes to just doing contract and invoice together. But in the email body, the only thing you'll need to make sure you have before you're going to send anything out is just make sure, and this works for workflows too. If you want to send out a contract with an invoice link in it, you can manipulate this in your workflows as well. But you'll just want to make sure that you have the contract link in Smart Field and the invoice link. As long as you have those two in the body, then whenever you're going to send out your contract with the invoice, it'll have two buttons, and I'll show you what that looks like in real time. So I'll go over to my job here, and I believe it's this one that I have it applied to. Yeah. So I'm going to go to the Invoices tab first. So this is assuming that they filled out a proposal or that you're not using a proposal, you're just creating an invoice for them, but you want to send out contract invoice together. So either way it works. Your invoice is going to get created here first, so you'll want to make sure that your invoice is ready to go. Once it's created, you're going to want to add the contract to the job, but you don't want to send it off yet because we want to send it together. And if you send the contract off first, then you're going to have to send another email with an invoice, and we don't want to bombard our clients. So just make sure that you add the contract to the job first, and I'll even show you in real time how to do that here. So let's say that you just have just an empty contract box. If you click the drop down, go to your sample contract or whichever one you're sending out, whichever template. When you add it to the job, it'll say needs sending over here on the left-hand side. Once it said needs sending, you can just exit out. So anytime that you have something that says needs sending, it's kind of sitting in a waiting area and it hasn't sent to the client yet. It's not in the portal. It's just kind of chilling. So if I click the drop down, you can make edits to the contract before it goes out, change things up. You can preview it again if you want to kind of review it and say, okay, this looks good, all of that. But the one thing you're going to want to make sure is that the contract is added and then the invoice is prepared and ready to go. As long as you have those two things set, now we can add in the canned email. So I have my contract added, invoice is good, we're good to go. My payment schedule is set up the way I like it, which I'll go back and kind of explain that too, because there's another thing that it ties into. But if I go to emails and then send email, now that I have my invoice ready, my contract's ready, I can click the drop down and go to my contract invoice email. And now I'm going to have a contract button and an invoice link button in the same email. So this is if I don't have a proposal as a part of this. The proposal has nothing to do with this. This is just if I want contract invoice together. So those two smart field links are going to be the key that ties all this in together. Awesome. Good. I'm glad that can help out. And so once you have the contract and invoice in the same email, then they can, and typically you'll want them to sign and then do the invoice. You can flip flop the smart fields or format it how you want to, but typically that's, you'll want them to sign off and then do the invoice. So once you send that off, it's going to send this contract, and then it's also going to send out the invoice that you have prepared ahead of time. Now, another best practice for this, because this might fall underneath a different category for some of you guys that are using proposals. If you have a proposal that has a lot of different possibilities for a payment schedule, depending upon what package they choose, depending upon a combination that they choose. You might have a completely different payment schedule. Right now in our system, you can only have one payment schedule preset before you send out your proposal. So that might cause some friction for you guys if you need to analyze what they chose and then apply the right payment schedule. That's when you'll do something like this. So you'll send the proposal out by itself. No payment schedules, no nothing, just send out the proposal. They can fill it out. Invoice gets created. When you get it back, you can go into the invoice that got created and say, okay, they got this combination of items or they purchased this package. So now I can just come down here and just apply the right payment schedule. So you're going to get a notification anyway that they filled out the proposal, so you won't have to figure out when are they sending it back. You'll get a notification. You can come into the invoice, see what they selected, and then you can apply the right payment schedule next. Get your contract added, go to email, and then do the same thing. So normally if you have multiple versions of a payment schedule that could possibly be selected, always send out the proposal by itself, get it back, and then do the contract invoice combo. And so it would be two emails instead of one. Some people want it to all be one, but at the moment, that's kind of the best practice for it. Now, we do have plans in the future to be able to have a different payment schedule be applied based off of what they choose, kind of like that form logic idea. So that will be coming in the future, but right now, the most efficient way to kind of work around that is to do the proposal by itself and then do contract invoice as a combination. And that way, you know the right payment schedule is attached because you manually applied it, and everything will look good on your end. So that's kind of the contract invoice combination. And so then we'll go into our last topic, and then I'll give the announcement at the end for those of you who have been hanging with me the entire time. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for giving me your time, but we'll jump into the last thing here, which is recurring invoices. Let me answer this question here. So there can be multiple payment schedules set up ahead of time, then just remove the unused one. So and I'll actually, since we're still on this, let me jump back. So underneath the proposal, I'll jump into my proposal here. You can have multiple payment schedule templates, but you can only apply one to the proposal. So underneath this settings tab, this is where I'm connecting contract, invoice, all of that. But it's asking beforehand, so this is before you've even sent it out, will this invoice have a payment schedule? At this point, you'll need to choose which one of your templates you want to use, and that will automatically be applied whenever they get to the end of everything. So you have to choose one beforehand, and then once they submit it, and let's say you have the invoice connected to it, at the end, whatever payment schedule you chose beforehand will show up at the end. So perfect, yeah. So whenever, if you're wanting to decide based off of what they choose in the proposal, which payment schedule to use, I would recommend just not having one when you first send out the proposal, and then just make sure that none of this is selected. So they'll go in, they'll fill this out, they'll get the proposal done, the invoice gets created still, but just on your end. Then you can come into the job, and so let's say they submitted it. That's the wrong one. Let me go back here. There we go. So they submitted it back, and so here's my invoice from them submitting it. Then the payment schedule, now let's just say, because if you send it out without a payment schedule, when you get the invoice back, there won't be one at the bottom. So this is what it'll look like when it comes back in. And now I can say, okay, they got items 1, 2, and 3. They got 2 add-ons. So I just want to use this payment schedule, and I'll just do a 50-50. So you apply the right payment schedule, add your contract in the top left, and then you can send everything out, and it'll have the right payment schedule because you kind of looked at what they chose, and then it's a little more efficient that way. So that's kind of how you'll navigate if you have different versions of them that could possibly be added. So, all right, we'll jump into the last thing here, recurring invoices. So this is a big one. We had so many questions on this, so I'm excited to jump into it. Yeah. So it's blank when it comes in, and you can add in whatever payment schedule you want on there. And always remember that our payment schedules are always live too, which means that let's just say that I only want them to see the deposit amount first, at any point in time in the job, I can come in, add in a new due date, as much, dollar amount as I want to. Every time you open up the invoice, it will reflect whatever the new payment is. So it just kind of always stays updated. Does the payment get auto-processed in this workflow? No. So the only thing that we have in our system, which I'll actually touch on with the recurring invoices, the only thing that gets auto-processed is if you have a subscription service with Stripe set up and recurring invoices. So whenever they're going through the proposal process, and even if you have the invoice linked up, it still has to be a manual payment. So nothing will get auto billed or anything like that. They'll have to actually manually do payments anytime you're using a proposal. So you can always adjust this payment schedule to fit, if you need to add in a new one, take away one, you can just kind of play around with it as you go. If that's kind of how your clients are set up, that it's more fluid, you can always do it that way. All right, wonderful. Recurring invoices, let's get into it. So I think I actually have one already set up here, so we can kind of walk through this. Now, recurring invoices, when should I use them? Yeah, absolutely. So recurring invoices, you should use recurring invoices if you're planning on billing your clients monthly, or you want them to have an invoice sent out to them based off of how you have your parameters set up. So if you're billing them every 2 weeks, then you would want to use recurring invoices. Payment schedules are going to be more for if you only want one invoice, but multiple due dates. So that's kind of the biggest difference, and you can kind of decipher which one makes more sense for your business. But if you're more on the lane of, I just want to bill them every single month, that's 100% recurring invoices. If it's more, well, here's just one invoice, I just want them to have different due dates and different percentages that they're going to pay, that's payment schedules. So that's kind of a good tip to decipher between the two of them. So we'll jump in here. So if I click add, I already have one here, but you'll click add underneath the recurring invoices on the invoices tab inside of a project. So if I click on add, it's going to give me the parameters. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so this will kind of help decipher which one you want to use. So I have recurring invoices set up here. Now, the settings on the recurrence is where you're going to do how often you want to bill them, when it's going to start, kind of set your recurrence settings or the parameters on which these invoices are going to go out. Thank you so much. Oh, that made my day. Thank you. I appreciate that. So we have we'll have the recurrence settings set up here. Now, the very first thing is you're going to decipher when you want to send these out or how often. So from here, you have a lot of options. If you want to bill them every single week, if you want to bill them once a month, if you want to bill them every 2 months, you can just play around with how often you want to. Most people, it's every month. So right now we'll just set it up for 1 month. So every single month I'm going to bill them. Now, starts on. The starts on, and if you have a pen and paper, write this down because it'll really help you kind of understand how everything is set up here. So the starts on just means that's when the invoice gets created and sent. So those are the two things that happen whenever you have your starts on. So since I have it set up for 7/26, that means that whenever I start this recurrence, on 7/26, the invoice gets created and then sent out. So that's how it will always do it. And then 8/26, it will get created on 8/26 and sent out. So the starts on, created, and sent. So that doesn't mean there's due dates set up with it or anything like that. It just means that's when it's going out to the client. Now, ends on, if you are doing more of a subscription type process. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. So if I have no ends on here, so if it says never, then that just means that it's going to be going nonstop. There's no end to it every single month until you stop it. So if you have start recurrence on, anytime you want to end it, you can just come into the invoice, click end, and then it'll stop in its tracks. So that's if you're doing more of a subscription type style. Real quick on subscriptions, how it's set up in our system. If you're using Stripe, Stripe is the only one that allows for auto billing, so like a subscription type style. Whenever they get their first invoice, there will be a box on the invoice that it will say allow for future payments for the client to check off on. This is kind of like the credit card authorization or saying, yes, it's okay to bill my card for however long it's going to be. So if you're using Stripe, that will be an option for you to use it. If you're using Square, we don't have in the system, unfortunately. So it's just going to bill them every single month. Yeah, that's right. So if you have Square, you can still do recurring invoices, but you're not able to do it on an auto subscription service. That's only through Stripe. So that if you still don't know which processor to go with and you need subscription, definitely sign up with Stripe, because that works in our system where you can do the auto billing. So never, if you want to do an end date, so let's say 7/26 is when the first one goes out, and then we want it to stop on December 26th. We want that to be the last one. A little pro tip for you guys who are setting this up that have an end date. If I set this up for December 26th to go out, there might be a chance they might not get that invoice, because when it hits midnight, December 26th, it might cut off before it sends out that last one. So what I recommend doing is, if you are billing, once a month, then I would just push it back a day or two. So 12/28 will end it. That way, they're getting that last one, and then it'll cut off 2 days later or the next day, or however you want to set that up. So just be kind of careful of that. There was one instance, I think we had an email from someone where their end date was on the day that it was supposed to send out, and the last one never sent. And so the recurrence shut off before it could send out that last one. So just kind of play around with that, and just make sure that if you're ending on a date, just push it like a day later, just so that that it's going to be going out. Another huge question that we've gotten a lot about recurring invoices: what time do these send out? The recurring invoices will go out at whatever time you start the parameters here. So right now it's 10/22. So if I were to start the recurrence right now, every single month at 10/22, it's going to send out the next invoice. So that's a huge important tip for you guys. If you need your invoices to go out at a certain time, make sure you start the recurrence when you want it to go out every single month. Specific circumstance questions. Okay, let's see here. If I offer a discounted rate for a yearly subscription, unless the client cancels, they are billed at the discounted rate quarterly. If they cancel, the most recent payment reverts into the full price. Is there an easy way to do this? Not at the moment. Right now, how our system is set up with recurring invoices is that once it starts, the only way that any edits can be made is if you end the recurrence and then start up a new settings and just start a new parameter. So hopefully later down the line, and it's kind of just a security thing, that if someone is picked, I want this to auto bill every single month, that the user can't go in and just say, oh, I just want to increase this by $10,000. And so it'll auto bill the next month at a higher rate. So right now it's more of just a security thing that you can't make changes to it, but hopefully in the future we can figure out a way to manipulate that so you can make edits. Yes, absolutely. So with recurring invoices, 100%. Whenever you want them to send out to your client every month, start the recurrence up here, start it at that time, and that's when it'll go out every single month. And that's kind of how it works with payment schedule reminders too. Whenever you set up your payment schedule reminder and you apply it to the invoice, that's what time it's going to go out. So that's how you can kind of prep that. Anytime you have reminders going out or recurring invoices, it's based off when you start them or when you apply them. Just a quick pro tip for you guys. So that'll be the starts on, ends, and we have all that good stuff there. Would I need to cancel the recurrence and then bill one invoice for the balance? Yeah, that's what I would do. You can just end the recurrence and then just go over to the invoices tab, and then you can just create your own invoice and just send that out. That would definitely be the best way to do it. And I got to move a little bit quicker. I do have a call today, so I need to make sure that I'm on that. And I have that in 20 minutes, so I'm going to move through the rest of this here because I still have my announcement I need to give. So the line item section here, the line item is what they're going to be billed on every single invoice. So you want to make sure that the total package price that you have is not what's in this section, or they're going to be billed that amount every single month. So on the invoice section here, this is going to be what they're billed every single time. So always make sure it's your monthly amount and not the total package amount. Unless you want to get paid more, then jack up the pricing. But yeah, so that'll be the amount that gets billed every single month or every time the invoice goes out. Okay, the last thing here, super important, payment schedules. How does that work with recurring invoices? I'm so happy that you guys asked. So underneath the payment schedule, the starts on, remember, is just when the invoice gets created and when it gets sent out. So there's not a due date to this. They're not getting any reminders. There's not a due date attached to it, nothing. It's just when it gets created and sent. So the payment schedule is going to work alongside the recurring invoice, and it's going to help put a due date on something and send out reminders to the client in case they don't pay. So I'll show you how that works. Let's say that I have my invoice going out on, we'll just say August 14th. So I want to bill them on the 14th. This is what my health insurance does, so I'm just kind of mirroring it. They're going to bill me on the 14th, but it's not due until the 1st. So I'm going to have the invoice go out on the 14th. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So August 14th is when the invoice is going to get created and sent, but it's not due at that moment. I want it to be due on the 1st. So now I'm going to set up a due date for this. So underneath the payment schedule, I'm going to have my due date set up. Now, if you're taking notes, there's only one trigger that will work with recurring invoices. This isn't for regular manual invoices, just for recurring. If you want the due date to always be the same every single month, then you will always use after applied to invoice. What that means is as soon as that invoice gets created, that counts as basically day one. So however long you want after it gets created for it to be due, that's where you're going to set this up. The job dates are based off of one day, the job date up here, so you can't use that as far as recurring goes. Same with contract signed, it's based off of one date. So the only thing that you can use that will recur every single time you send it out is after applied to invoice. And I have it set up for 2 weeks after that, and also 100%. And I'll explain why. So I have it set up for 100% because I want them to pay the full monthly amount. So you don't want them to pay 75% of it. You want them to pay that whole thing because it's their monthly bill. So 100% is due. And then I have it being due 2 weeks after the invoice gets created and sent. So 2 weeks after the 14th is when it's due, which is basically like the 1st. So you can kind of time it that way. Okay, it's due, 2 weeks after the 15th, or however you want to set your parameters. If you send it out on, let's say, the 20th and it's due on the 27th, you can do it 7 days later. So you can use after applied to invoice as your trigger, and you can do however long after it's sent out is when it's due. So I have it going out on the 14th, and then that would make it due on the 28th. I could push it farther if I wanted to, but just for demonstration purposes. So the 28th is when it's going to be due. Even though it's due on the 28th, the client still has no idea when it's actually due. This is just on your end so you can see, oh, it's due at this time. What will get the client information is if you set up a reminder to go out. So there's a 3-step process: start date, due date, and then we want to send the reminder out. Right now I have a reminder that's set up that 5 days, if they don't pay, they're going to get a reminder that goes out to them saying, hey, you forgot to pay your invoice. So I have it set up 5 days after the due date, and I'll show you how that works. Starts on, goes out on the 14th, created and goes out. The due date is 2 weeks, so it'll push it 2 weeks later, which will put us to the 28th. Now, if they don't pay on the 28th, I have a reminder that's going to go out 5 days later in case they don't pay. So that pushes me to September 2nd, I think. Yeah, September 2nd, they would get a reminder saying, hey, you forgot to pay your invoice. The way our reminders are set up is if they make a payment before the reminder goes out, then the reminder gets canceled out. So you don't have to worry about stuff firing off that they might have made a payment and they still get a reminder. Anytime the invoice gets paid on or paid based off the due date, the reminders get canceled out. So that's how you can kind of plan around before you set up your recurring invoice and get it started. Think about those 3 dates. When do I want it to be created and sent? When do I want it actually due? And you'll use the after applied to invoice. And then you'll want to know when you want your reminders to get sent out based off that due date. I have mine set up for 5 days later in case they don't pay. You can also have it set up for 2 weeks before, like 2 days before it's due if you want something to go out. So pick your reminders based off your due date, which is then based off of when it starts on. I know it's a lot of information, and I hope that kind of made sense to you guys on how you can think about going through and setting it up. But I have about 15 minutes here, and I want to make sure I get my announcement in. So let me run through a couple more things here. If you guys want to book a call with me, so like I said in the beginning, I do one-on-one consultations. They're 20-minute calls, and they're complimentary. So you don't have to worry about getting all your information to me just in that 20 minutes. You can book as many as you like. Try not to book me out for the entire day. Let other people have a chance. But you can always book a call with me. Here's the link, dubsado.com/getting-started. And at the bottom of the page, you'll be able to see my schedule on there. You can just book me out for a 20-minute call, and we can do more one-on-one help. And I can actually go into your account, look at what's going on. We do a screen share. So definitely take advantage of that. I love talking with you guys and working with you and kind of working through your process and all of that. And it can be about anything in the system. So not just recurring invoices, but workflows and all of that. Oh, we have a question here. Can we see what the client sees on the invoice with this set up? So really, actually, I think I do. Oh, I have a picture, but what I'll do after this, I'll post the picture of what it looks like in the comments. So after I get off of here, I'll show you what the client can see, and I'll post it in the comments on the live feed. So yeah, if you want to book a call, dubsado.com, getting started. Oh yeah, high five. Yeah. So book a call with me. We'll chat through any questions you have. Now, the big announcement for those of you guys who have waited for the whole segment. Thank you guys. I am doing a workflow giveaway. I wanted to do this for the community. I thought it'd be kind of a cool thing to kind of spice things up. I know we've done giveaways in the past with like MacBooks and things like that, but I wanted to do a workflow giveaway where I'll call you, we'll sit down, we'll chat about what your workflow is and how you have things structured and set up, and then I'll actually build your workflow for free for you. I just wanted to do something awesome for the community for you guys. I know you guys are always working hard with your business. So one lucky person will win a workflow setup, and I'll be leading that charge, and I'll be setting it up for you guys. So let me post the link. If you guys know how to screenshot, then you can take a picture of this on your screen. I'll also post the link in the comments. This is going to be following the workflow webinar. This is where you're going to sign up. So let me reverse back because I'm getting ahead of myself. Next Thursday, 9:45, same time that we do the FAQ&A, I'm going to be doing a workflow webinar next Thursday morning, same time, 9:45. I'm going to be going over everything workflow. So all the actions, all the triggers, where to apply things. I'm going to be going over 100% everything workflows top to bottom next week, 9:45 PST. Tell your friends. How the workflow giveaway is going to play into it is everyone who is registered for the webinar will be in the running for this. And that's what this link is here. And I'll post it in the comments. Everyone who's registered will be in the running for winning the workflow giveaway. Now, you don't have to attend the workflow webinar because I know some of you guys, it might be midnight and you won't be up when it's going on. So that's totally understandable. But you just need to at least be registered for it, and you'll get a copy of the webinar so you can see who won and all of that. At the end of the webinar next week, I'm going to be announcing the winner, and then I'll reach out and kind of go over how it's going to work. There are some things that I'm going to need beforehand, or part of it that's not involved in the workflow setup is like building forms and things like that. That'll be stuff that you'll have to do. But as far as getting all of your system in place, I'm going to be doing that. Yep, 9:45 PST AM. Same time as we do this FAQ&A, that's when we're going to be doing the workflow webinar. And then at the end of that, I'll be announcing the winner. So we have a lot of people registered right now. I'm super pumped. Next week is going to be insane. I know it's going to be a ton of questions. How long will the winner have to claim? Well, I'm just going to reach out to them and say, hey, you won. I'll be the one that reaches out, and then we'll just go through and set everything up. So there's not really a time limit on how long it takes to set it up. But I do want to, we'll do like a 30-minute call as part of it, kind of like a pre-call. And then we'll, you know, if I have any questions, I'll reach out and I'll stay in constant communication with you until we get your workflow set up. Awesome. I'm sure this is all at the link. Yeah, so this actually right here was at the bottom. This is the landing page that gives you all the information. So if you go to this, and like I said, I'll post it in the comments on this live video for you guys. I think it's also the top announcement in the community too. I think Becca made it an announcement. It's like this big light bulb. So if you're not registered yet, you can register there too. But definitely at least register and you'll be in the running for it. But I would love for you to attend next week. Since it's all over workflows, so everything workflows. So FAQ&A will continue again 2 weeks from now, as next week will be the workflow webinar. But I have to jump off of here. I have another call coming up with one of our users. But I love doing this with you guys. The workflow webinar is next week, and then we'll do another FAQ&A the week after. Perfect. Glad you guys got signed up. But yeah, so hopefully the material we went over today helps out and helps you guys kind of understand some different things. But other than that, have a great rest of the week. We'll see you guys next week for the workflow webinar and the giveaway. And if you do want to see things on FAQ&A, comment. If you want to just write a post in the community, you can do that. I'll read it. I try to read everything. And then we can go ahead and go through anything, book a call with me, all that good stuff. Okay, I'm getting off of here. Have a great rest of the week.